Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Cummings, for convening this important oversight hearing on regulations and its effect. I was thinking, how do you get all these regulations? And we're deluged with thousands of federal regulations. And here's how we get them. It was great to follow Mr. Cummings because he's on the Transportation Committee. He talked about transportation. Now, this is the list of current surface transportation programs and bureaucracy. This is what we deal with on our committee and our jurisdiction. Look at them, dozens and dozens. It started from less than a dozen programs. Now, every one of these programs, they have to produce rules and regulations. So just look at this chart and then look at what these people have to do. So one of the first things you have to do is collapse some of the bureaucracy. Some of these are duplicate activities and actually passing out all kinds of regulations that people have to deal with. Then the results are very important. And if you take something like Mr. Cummings talked about, transportation projects, what the President talked about, we can throw all the money we want at programs and try to say we're going to put people to work in transportation. Here's the problem we face, and shovel-ready has become a national joke. This is why it's become a national joke, because it's just one of in this one chart here, you see it takes you about 6 years to pass to comply with regulations to get any kind of transportation project that involves the federal government. 6 years. So shovel-ready has become just a joke because you can't do it. We've proposed actually to reduce the time if you could do some approvals concurrently rather than consecutively. So we're not accused of running over any environmental standards or regulations, and many of these things are important to comply with. But this is what you have to comply with now, all these rules and regulations to do a simple project. So the rule of thumb is if the federal government gets involved, the project takes 3 times as long and costs 3 times as much. Then if you're trying to shovel money into these projects, which we've tried to do, and we have the latest proposal for what, $450 billion, of which only 12% is transportation and infrastructure, you're going to run into the same problem they ran into last time. How many times do you hit your head against the wall and get a different result? But 35% of the $63 billion, $63 billion was the total out of $787 billion that went for infrastructure, $63 billion. 35% September 1st was still in Washington, D.C. They couldn't even spend it because of the regulations that inhibit the ability to move forward with a project. So we've got to change both the scope of the bureaucracies we've created, then we've got to reduce the regulations, or at least find some way to move forward in a coherent fashion if you want compliance, and people do want compliance with certain things in a reasonable fashion, and that's what we're going to have to do. But glad you brought up the subject, Mr. Cummings, and thank you, Mr. Isa, for holding this hearing.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes.
We usually don't have additional opening statements, but I thank the gentleman because you came well prepared, and because hopefully this committee, which represents the job impediments that every committee of Congress deals with, will benefit from that. And I want to especially thank you.
And this is just a little microcosm, transportation, but I mean, you all serve on different committees and deal with different issues in your communities, and you see how we're strangling the nation in bureaucracy and regulations, and we've got to attack both, and this is a good start. Thank you.